on coping with the sudden death of our therapist or counsellor. I use the word counsellor and therapist interchangeably throughout this. Recently, a situation occurred which I never envisaged would happen. That was hearing of the sudden death of my long-time therapist. She was not old, and it came out of the blue. No one had any idea. Our therapist can be the only trusted support we have, especially if we are estranged from family due to abuse issues. Our therapist quite possibly knows us better than anyone else in the world. For a long-time therapist who has walked with us through many challenging periods in our lives, it is natural to be devastated by this shocking news. Not only will possibly the main stability in our lives suddenly have disappeared, but where does that leave us as clients when attention focuses on family, friends and colleagues? Where do clients fit in to the collective grieving? Clients can quite possibly spend more time with a therapist than friends or some family. Their conversations and trust may be deeper than with anyone else. How is it to feel shock and grief for the loss of an important pillar of our lives when clients don't seem to fit into the standard model of grieving? This can leave us feeling abandoned and isolated. The irony is that in situations like this, I would speak to my therapist. I always looked forward to my counselling session with Kate. That's not her real name. We had some amazing conversations about life, the universe and everything. She could understand me to a depth that was quite extraordinary. I received a reminder text on the morning of my appointment as normal. About an hour later, I received another text saying the appointment had been cancelled. This seemed really unusual. Kate really cancelled appointments. She realised the importance of consistency and reliability. If on the rare occasion she rescheduled an appointment, she would always do it personally, by phone call or email, never by a brief text saying your appointment has been cancelled. Something felt odd. I noticed I'd had a missed call from a number I didn't recognise. I don't usually phone numbers I don't recognise back, but on this occasion I did. The lady I spoke to introduced to me as a colleague of Kate's and confirmed my appointment was cancelled. I asked if Kate was okay, and the lady stuttered a little before saying she's not feeling great. This worried me that something more serious had happened. I thanked Kate's colleague and ended the call. There was no mention of rescheduling. I felt worried, but there was little I could do. I was sad to miss my meeting with Kate anyway, but something felt odd. There was nothing I could do but wait. I hated those moments where I couldn't do anything but wait. I thought of what Kate would say to me in this circumstance and drew on that. I would be with the uncertainty and wait. I pushed it to the back of my mind and continued working for a couple of days. It kept popping forward into my mind over that time. 2 days later, I received a call from another number I didn't recognise. I answered it, and it was another colleague of Kate's. I had this sinking feeling of what might be unfolding. I knew that colleagues did not know the names of each other's clients. This colleague knew my name when she introduced herself. She asked me if I was driving. I said no, I was in the car, but I was parked. I can't quite recall the exact conversation from here. It was something like, I know you've had a long relationship with Kate. I didn't want to have to tell you this over the phone, but I want you to hear this from us rather than elsewhere. Kate passed away suddenly 2 days ago. Kate's colleague was clearly upset too and was doing her best to keep professional. But there was a human side to this. We are both human beings in shock of what's just happened. Kate's colleague said they have a duty of care to me as a client. She offered me a counselling session with a colleague of Kate's, or said she could recommend counsellors from a different practice. I thanked her and said I will sit with this for a while and get back in touch with her. I ended the call. I sat in shock for a while, stunned. I then started to cry. The shock and disbelief. It's hard to name all the emotions. I felt I needed a safe place to go, where I could be with people, but also be with myself. I went to my regular cafe. On walking in, the owner looked at me with a soft empathy. He could tell something was wrong. I said, "Can I order a tea and a hug, please?" He did exactly that, and didn't question or ask further. I found that so important, to be with someone empathic who does not try to help. I sat with my tea in the corner and stared into space. I felt the presence of the kind cafe staff, but they didn't disturb me. They let me do and be what I needed to do and be. This was so important. When I got home, I decided to search on the internet for what to do on the sudden death of your therapist. There was surprisingly little on this subject. There was not so much about the human side of it and how people cope when perhaps the only stable relationship in their life disappears suddenly. I felt heartbroken. I felt bereft. Kate was integral to my journey towards wholeness. I had a counselling session with a colleague of Kate's 9 days after Kate's death. It felt weird sitting in the waiting room, empty, bare. I was met by Beth, a colleague of Kate's. Beth is not her real name. Beth was very kind, but seemed nervous, understandably. I acknowledged to Beth that it felt weird for me and must be weird for her too. She said yes and said she was asked if she was prepared to take on one of Kate's long-time clients. She agreed and said she had no idea how it would go. I wanted to reassure Beth, so I said, "Although I don't understand how you feel, I understand, if that makes any sense." Beth was nice. I asked her if she knew anything about me or my journey with Kate, if she had notes or anything. She said no. If there were notes, they would be Kate's private ones. I said it's been such a huge journey over the last several years that it would be easier if there were notes. I realised at this point I would only like to deal with the shock and grief of the loss of Kate. The other stuff can be parked for a later date. Overall, the counselling session was useful. It helped it to feel a bit more real, although I'm still having moments of, "I can't believe this has happened," and moments of denial. I will see if I need another session to work with the grief later. I feel this session was just to prove that Kate really had died, to address the disbelief of the situation. It helped somewhat with that. I was grateful to Beth for showing up at what was a difficult time for both of us. I asked Beth how to mark the closure of my time with Kate. Beth suggested I write a letter to Kate, but don't post it. What I wanted was for Beth to say, "Go to Kate's funeral." That is what I really wanted to do. I felt I needed permission to go because of counselling client-practitioner protocols. I decided to light a candle each evening until Kate's funeral. Near the candle, I put tea bags. We always drank a specific brand because it was much better than the rest. I have a couple of friends who can understand how important having the stable presence of my counsellor was. I spoke to them a little about it. I did not want to emotionally dump onto them. In situations like this, I would speak to Kate. This added to the weird loop. I paid for Kate to perform that role. However, over so many years of her being in this role, I did get to know her as a human being. Not a huge amount, but little snippets, examples of her life situations which were helpful to my progress. There is a confusion in me on whether I miss Kate or whether I miss her role in my life. Kind, supportive, available, consistent, wise, compassionate. Did I really know Kate? I knew that Kate worked from the heart, and that is important. Her life roles were secondary. It is obvious to me that Kate genuinely worked from her heart, and that is all I needed to know about Kate. I remember in the very beginning when I was drowning in life, she took me on for free. I will miss the Kate I knew and her heartfelt, kind and compassionate presence. I spoke to a friend who worked in a similar business. She said she could see no issue if I went to Kate's funeral. She said funerals are open to anyone wanting to say goodbye. I was so glad to hear this. So I did. I went to Kate's funeral. There were lots of people there whom I didn't know. I'm so glad I went to Kate's funeral. It was emotional and respectful. It was a ritual which made it feel a little more real. I was able to move from shock and disbelief towards properly grieving. I felt held by the ritual and by everyone there. Still, a part of me is in disbelief, but that part is integrating slowly. This process is ongoing. It's still difficult. I still feel lost. Creating this channel is helpful. It was something Kate encouraged me to do. A difficult thing is that many people will not understand how important a counsellor can be to people with unstable lives and estranged families. This can make you feel isolated and lonely. So here I list a few things that I did, and hopefully they may help you. 1. I grieved. I still grieve, and I will grieve as long as I need to grieve. Grieving is healing. I went to the funeral to help with that grieving process. That was really helpful. If you have understanding friends, speak to them. This can be very supportive. However, it's quite possible that you don't have understanding friends. If this is the case, maybe you could get support online, such as the Samaritans or Breathing Space in the UK. Also in the UK is frazzledcafe.org. I use these. I found them really helpful. When my mind became overwhelmed, I sometimes just went to the cinema just to switch off for a little while. It just helps regulate that incessant mind. Then I imagined what my counsellor would say. What would she say in this situation? I dug deep into my resources, the things I learned, the conversations I had. I used the resource that has built up over the years of my working with Kate. It's a huge resource, and it's within. I've started looking for a counsellor to work with the shock and grief of the loss. The stage after that is to find a counsellor who understands where I am on my journey. This feels more difficult for me. This journey was supposed to be with Kate as my guide and support. She knew me and my past. I trusted Kate and respected her wisdom. I will possibly have difficulty with initially working with a new counsellor, but it's good to remember that a new counsellor may be another shining light in my life. I created this YouTube channel. Kate knew about this and has been encouraging me to do it. I've been talking about it for over a year, but this has spurred me on to do it. I'm going to say yes to life, even if those yes moments feel out of my comfort zone. Kate would have loved me saying this. So this is my experience so far. It will develop in the weeks and months to come. My heart goes out to anyone in a similar situation. Please share in the comments if you wish to. And remember, wisdom can come from the unlikeliest of places. Listen out for it and follow your heart. A young guy said to me the other day, "She just stepped aside because you are the Jedi now." How lovely.